feel like because I'm recording it, you can't say anything. Stop me if you have a question. Okay. So I'm on P9A 35A. And it says, during 2014, Tivora Corporation completed the following transactions. And I think we're lucky because it might be just 3 or 4 transactions. We got 3 transactions here. And they're repeated up here at the top of each field. So we'll take them one at a time. Okay. It says we traded in old office equipment with a book value of $35,000. Remember, book value is always the cost minus the accumulated depreciation. Okay, I've been repeating it quite a bit, so hopefully that sinks in. Whenever you hear book value, always think of costs minus accumulated depreciation. Okay, and then in parentheses here, they give us the cost and the accumulated depreciation. So what they're doing is they're getting rid of this equipment. They're trading it in, and they're getting new equipment, okay? And on top of trading it in, they're paying $65,000 in cash to get this new equipment. And then it says the fair value of the new equipment is $104,000. Okay, so what I want to do is maybe I'll break it down for you here. So they are going to get new equipment. So they got new office equipment. They're going to be getting rid of the old office equipment. So that means they need to get rid of the accumulated depreciation associated with that old equipment. And it says that up here in a parentheses, $94,000. Remember, accumulated depreciation has a normal credit balance. So if you're going to get rid of it, you're going to debit that account. Okay. They're going to get rid of that old equipment. So we got to remove the old equipment from the books. That old equipment had a cost of $129,000. So that equipment goes away. Remember, equipment's an asset, so it was sitting there as a debit. When I get rid of it, I credit the account. We are paying cash. So we're paying out $65,000 in cash, and they're telling me the new equipment has a new value, has a fair value of $104,000. Okay, so what you do from this point is you look at your debits and you look at your credits, and you figure out, what do I have more of? Well, I got 198 in debit, and I got 194 in credit. So I need another $1,000 in credit, right? If you look at it as is, so I would put another 1,000 here. Now remember, the difference between, this basically is the difference between what you're getting and what you gave up. Okay, you can think of it that way, right? What you're getting and what you gave up. If the difference ends up being where you need more credit, then you have a gain. You have a gain on disposal. If it had ended up where you needed more debit to make this entry balance, then you would have a loss on disposal. Okay? So this is going to be to record exchange of old office equipment and cash for new office equipment. Now I'm going to break it down for you over here, right? Let's see. You got the new equipment. Oops. Right. And then you got the book value. And the book value is that cost of 129, cost of the old equipment minus its accumulated depreciation. Okay. And then you got the cash you paid. Okay, so you got the new equipment of 104. You paid 65,000 in cash.
Where did you get the 1,000 from?
The 1,000 is the difference. So if I add up 129.65 and I add up 104 and 94, maybe I didn't do the math right. Let's double check. Okay, so if I add those two up, and then I add up the 129 and the 65, you might be right. Yeah, it is 4,000. Okay. So we have a $4,000 gain. Okay. So it's basically, take this away. This is the new equipment. This is the accumulated depreciation on the old equipment, right? Now this is the old equipment cost and the cash we're paying. So the difference between the two, right, is 4,000. Basically, we have a gain because what we had to give up, right, is less than what we got. Okay, if you think of it that way. What we gave up is less than what we got. So I think the easiest way is just to think about it in a journal entry. Then you can figure out how much you need to balance that entry. Okay, and in this case it was 4,000. We didn't initially do the math in our head correctly. Okay. So far so good. Okay. Okay, now on April 1st, which is basically 3 months into the new year, we sold equipment that cost $54,000 and it had accumulated depreciation of $43,000 through December 31st. So they haven't computed the depreciation all the way through March. Okay. Tevara received $5,800 cash from the sale of the equipment. Depreciation is computed on the straight line basis. The equipment has a 5-year useful life and a residual value of 0. Okay. So before we can record the sale, we have to record the depreciation through the first 3 months of the year. Okay. So if we're using straight line, remember straight line is costs minus residual value divided by estimated useful life, right? That would give me my annual depreciation expense. But in this case, I have a partial year. Okay? So once I get that annual amount, annual depreciation, I need to multiply it by the fraction of the year that went by. So that's going to be multiplied by 3 months divided by 12 months. Okay? And that'll give me my depreciation expense basically through, take these out of the way. Through March 31st. Because we're on April 1st right here, right? When we make this sale. So we could plug these numbers in. We could say the cost of this asset, and it tells me up here, 54,000. So we can take 54,000 minus, and it says it has no residual value, so minus 0, divided by, it had a 5-year estimated life. Okay? So if I do 54,000 divided by 5, I get an annual depreciation expense of 10,800. Okay? Now I got to take it a step further to figure out how much depreciation expense I need to record for the time frame through the beginning of the year, right? From the beginning of the year through March. So all we really have to do now is take 10,800 and multiply it by basically 1/4, right? But I'll put it out longhand for you, 3 divided by 12. Okay? So that's going to give me 10,000 times. Okay? This is going to be depreciation expense for 1/1 through 3/31. Okay? That's the number we're going to use to make this journal entry down here. 27,000. Okay, so we can record depreciation expense and accumulated depreciation to record partial year depreciation on equipment, because it's not a full year's depreciation. It's the depreciation up through the date that we sell this asset. Because once we sell this asset, we're no longer going to take depreciation on it. It's no longer ours, right? But we've got to make sure we capture it through the date that we sell it. Okay, before we record the entry to sell it. Now, we turn around and sell the thing. Okay, we got to get rid of its cost, right? And its accumulated depreciation. Be careful, because prior to making that entry, the asset had an accumulated depreciation expense of 43,000. It says right up here, right? Through December 31st. So we got 43,000. This is 12/31. Okay. Make sure you figure out what the accumulated depreciation is as of April 1st before you remove this asset. So we got to tack on that 2,700 that we just recorded, right? This is depreciation expense through 3/31 of the following year. Okay, so your accumulated depreciation account will have a balance of 45,700. Okay, this is the balance on 4/1. Okay, that's the one we want to deal with. We can't just take the 43 off. We got to take 45,700 off of here. Okay, let's see what happens. So it says we sold the equipment, okay, and we receive 5,800 cash. So we're going to book a debit to cash, 5,800. Okay, we sold it for, and we got 5,800 cash. Okay, now we have to remove the old equipment. So the old equipment, I'll skip a line, right? Sitting there with a debit, the thing cost us 54,000. So we're going to take it off. We're going to credit equipment 54,000 to remove it. We also have to remove its related accumulated depreciation of 45,700. So I'm going to debit accumulated depreciation 45,700, because that had a credit balance. To get rid of that, I have to debit the account. Now, I prefer to just look at this in the journal entry to figure out the gain or loss. Let's see. This, I have 54,000 in credit, and I have, what, 51,000.
Wait, where did you get the 54,000 from?
The 54,000 was the cost of the asset.
Oh.
Right? We're removing the asset from the books, so we have to, asset sits there as a debit. To get rid of that asset, we have to credit that account. Yeah? So let's see. Real quick calculation over here. Okay. We got 51,500 in debit and 54,000 in credit. So we actually need more debit. We have a loss. Okay? We have a loss on the sale of this equipment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to inch down, because I like to have my journal entries where all the debits happen first and then all the credits happen after that. So we'll leave some room here for a loss on disposal. Okay? And the difference, the loss is going to be the difference, right? 54,000 minus 51,500. I got a $2,500 loss. Okay? Record the sale of equipment. Okay? Had I had more debit than credit, then that I would swing that entry to where I had a gain. But in this case, I have a loss. Okay? Losses are recorded as debits, gains are recorded as credits. Okay? So in this one, always remember, make sure you capture the depreciation up through the date of sale, and then figure your gain or loss out as you make the entry. That's probably the quickest way to do this. I mean, you could diagram it out here on the side, but you can do it right here in the entry. Okay. Okay, now, December 31st, we're recording depreciation on the office equipment. So they're referring to that office equipment that we bought, that we got up here in the first step, that $104,000 office equipment. Okay. It says office equipment is depreciated using the double declining balance method over 4 years with a residual value of 8,000. So this requires you to remember how to do your double declining balance, right? Let's see. Now the life is 4 years. So the straight line rate would be 1/4 per year, right? The double declining rate is twice the straight line rate. So it's going to be 2/4 per year, which is 1/2, right? Now remember, when we do double declining, we take the book value and multiply it by the double declining balance rate, which we just figured out to be 2/4. And that'll give us our depreciation expense. Okay? Now, since it's the first year that this asset was put into operation, it doesn't have any accumulated depreciation on it. Okay? So we have 0 for accumulated depreciation. Remember, book value is always cost minus accumulated depreciation. But in this case, I don't have any accumulated depreciation, so I can just use the cost. This asset has a booked cost of 104,000. So we'll take 104,000 and multiply it by the double declining rate, which is 2/4, which is 1/2, right? So basically, we're going to take 1/2 of 104,000, so that'll be 52,000 for the first year. That'll be our depreciation. Let's see if my mental math works. Okay. And then just like any depreciation entry, right? Debit depreciation expense, 52,000, and credit accumulated depreciation, 52,000. And this would be to record depreciation expense on office equipment.